Alpha King pretended to be powerless near Omega until a broken oath forced his true aura free. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main characters. In a world where power is everything, and where wolves rule in packs with an iron fist, Aiden Thornridge stands as a king among them. Known as the Alpha King, his presence alone commands respect and fear. But that's not how he chose to present himself when he first crossed paths with Isabella Woods, a rejected Omega, dismissed by her pack and left to fend for herself. Aiden, the king of the Northern Territories, walked into her life not as the ruler he truly was, but as a humble, helpless stranger, hiding his true identity. No one knew who he really was. Not Isabella, not the pack, and certainly not the wolves who surrounded them. He feigned weakness, a crippled man in tattered clothes, leaning heavily on a cane, his every step slow and deliberate. To everyone who saw him, he was just another fallen alpha, no different from any of the other broken men in the world. Yet, there was something about him that drew Isabella in. She could not explain it, but something in her heart tugged at the sight of this frail figure. She, too, was an outcast, a woman discarded by her pack because of her weak wolf, her inability to shift properly into the creature she was supposed to become. They were alike in their loneliness, both invisible in a world that valued strength above all else. And so, when Aiden asked for her help, pretending to be nothing more than a lost soul, Isabella, with her kind heart and selflessness, could not turn him away. She helped him, nursed him back to health, believing she was aiding a simple man in need. But little did she know, her every action, her every gesture of kindness, was being watched by someone far greater than the helpless man before her. Aiden, the man who she thought was weak, had a power that far exceeded anything she could comprehend. The Alpha King, hidden beneath layers of deception, was waiting for the right moment to reveal himself, to claim what was his. That moment came unexpectedly, when a broken oath forced Aiden to break his disguise and unleash his true aura. In the blink of an eye, the man she had cared for, the man who had seemed so frail, transformed before her eyes into the powerful, commanding ruler of the wolves. His true power surged, a force so immense that it left Isabella breathless, her world spinning as she tried to process the shocking truth. The man she had helped, the man she had grown to care for, was not the weakling he had let her believe. He was the Alpha King, and she had unknowingly become his mate. As the truth of Aiden's identity sank in, Isabella stood frozen, her heart racing. The man who had come to her in such a fragile state, the one she had helped, was no ordinary man. He was the Alpha King, ruler of the Northern Territories, and she had unknowingly become his mate. The weight of his presence was overwhelming, and the air between them seemed to crackle with an intensity she had never felt before. Aiden, now fully himself, stood tall and proud, his once crippled form now exuding power and dominance. His eyes, once gentle and warm, now glowed with an icy resolve. Isabella's breath caught in her throat as she realized the magnitude of what had just happened. The man who had pretended to be weak, to be nothing more than a stranger in need of help, was the very ruler she had heard of only in stories. She had always known there was something different about him, but she had never imagined he would be the Alpha King. Isabella, Aiden's voice was deep and commanding, yet there was a tenderness in it that she had not expected. You have been my strength when I needed it the most. I owe you everything. His words sent a shiver down her spine, and for a moment, she could only stare at him in disbelief. She had healed him, cared for him, and in return, he had revealed a truth that would change everything. Her mind raced as she tried to make sense of the whirlwind of emotions flooding her. How could she, a lowly Omega, be tied to such a powerful man? How could someone like her, someone discarded by her pack, be destined for a king? But Aiden's gaze never wavered. He stepped closer to her, his presence overwhelming yet strangely comforting. You are not just an Omega, Isabella, he said, his tone soft but filled with authority. You are my fated mate, the one I have been waiting for. Isabella felt her heart skip a beat at his words. The connection between them was undeniable, a bond that seemed to have been written in the stars long before they ever met. But with this revelation came a torrent of emotions, fear, confusion, and an overwhelming sense of responsibility. She had never imagined herself as someone's mate, let alone the mate of the Alpha King. "But I'm not like the others," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I can't shift properly. I'm not like the strong Omega that others expect." Aiden's eyes softened, and he reached out, gently cupping her face in his hand. "It doesn't matter," he said, his thumb brushing over her skin. "What matters is what you are to me. You are mine, and I am yours. Together, we will be unstoppable." The words he spoke were more than just a promise. They were a declaration of something deeper, something that went beyond power and status. It was a bond that transcended their roles, their pacts, and the expectations placed upon them. Isabella had no idea what the future held, but one thing was clear: her life had changed forever. As she looked into Aiden's eyes, she realized that the journey ahead would not be easy. But for the first time in her life, she felt like she truly belonged. And with Aiden by her side, she knew they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The days that followed Aiden's revelation were a blur for Isabella. The quiet, familiar life she had known seemed to dissolve with each passing moment, replaced by something new, something vast and unknown. Aiden, though still the same man she had cared for, now carried an air of authority that sent waves of uncertainty through her. The weight of his title, the Alpha King, felt heavier than ever. She found herself in his palace, surrounded by luxury beyond anything she had ever imagined. The tall walls, adorned with ancient tapestries, seemed to whisper secrets of a time long past. The rooms, bathed in golden light, were far from the humble home she had grown up in. But even amid the grandeur, she could not escape the gnawing feeling in her chest. Aiden had been kind to her, more than she ever expected from a king, but the power that now emanated from him felt like a barrier. He was a ruler, a leader, someone who commanded respect and loyalty from everyone around him. She was an Omega, an outcast, who had once been cast aside by her own pack. How could someone like her ever be his equal? "Isabella," Aiden's voice broke through her thoughts, warm and steady. She turned to face him, finding him standing by the window, his gaze lost in the distance. "I know this is all a lot to take in," he continued, his voice softening as he stepped toward her. "But I need you to know that you are not just my mate. You are everything to me." His words, though reassuring, only added to her confusion. How could she be everything to him? She, who had always been weak, who had never truly felt like she belonged anywhere. "I don't know how to be the mate of a king," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not strong like the others. I don't have what it takes to be by your side." Aiden took a step closer, his presence both comforting and overwhelming. "You do not need to be like anyone else," he said gently. "You are perfect as you are. Your strength is in your heart, in the kindness you show, in the way you care for others." Isabella met his gaze, her heart aching with the weight of his words. She wanted to believe him, to trust that she could be enough for him, but the doubt still lingered. She was not like the powerful women he had likely known before. She was not a warrior, not someone who could command a room with a single glance. And yet, Aiden had chosen her. "But what about your people?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What if they never accept me? I'm just an Omega. I don't belong here." Aiden reached out, gently cupping her face in his hands. "You belong with me. That is all that matters. The rest, we will face together." The sincerity in his eyes made her breath catch, and for the first time in days, she felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, she could find her place beside him. "You do not have to face this alone," he continued, his voice steady and filled with conviction. "I will stand by you, no matter what." Isabella closed her eyes, taking in his words, allowing herself to believe in the possibility of a future where she was not just a forgotten Omega, but someone worthy of love, of belonging. She didn't know what the future would hold, but with Aiden at her side, she felt like she could face whatever came next. As the days passed, Isabella slowly adjusted to her new life beside Aiden. The palace, with its towering spires and golden halls, felt less foreign with each passing day. Yet, despite the comforts, she could not shake the nagging doubt that lingered in the back of her mind. Aiden was the Alpha King, the most powerful wolf in the Northern Territories, and she was just an Omega, someone discarded and forgotten by her own pack. The weight of their difference in status still felt too great to ignore. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the palace, Aiden found Isabella standing alone by the balcony, looking out at the vast lands below. Her gaze was distant, lost in thought. He had noticed her growing quietness lately, a silence that had not escaped his notice. "Isabella," Aiden called gently, stepping closer to her. "Is something bothering you?" She turned to face him, her eyes soft, but filled with uncertainty. "I don't know if I can do this, Aiden," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm not like the others. I don't belong in your world. You're a king, and I'm just me." Aiden's expression softened, and he reached for her hand, pulling her gently toward him. "You belong here with me. That's all that matters. Your place is by my side, and that's where you will always be." Isabella felt a flutter in her chest, the warmth of his words offering comfort, yet the fear still remained. She had never been trained to be a queen, never been taught how to rule, how to lead. She was not a warrior, not a noblewoman. She had been raised to believe she was nothing. "But your people, Aiden," Isabella said, her voice trembling. "What if they never accept me? I'm not like the women you've known. I'm not strong. I don't have a wolf that is worthy of your status." Aiden's eyes shone with determination as he cupped her face in his hands, his thumb gently brushing her cheek. "You are more than enough. I don't need a powerful wolf. I need you, your heart, your spirit. That is what makes you perfect for me." Isabella closed her eyes, allowing herself to breathe in his words, letting them wash over her. For the first time in a long time, she felt a flicker of hope, a small light at the end of a long, dark tunnel. Aiden was right. He had chosen her, not for what she lacked, but for everything she had to offer. In that moment, she realized that no matter what the future held, they would face it together. There would be challenges, no doubt, but she would not be alone. "I'm scared, Aiden," she confessed, her voice barely audible. "I've never been in a place like this, never been with someone like you." He smiled softly, his eyes full of understanding. "I know, but you don't have to be afraid. We will take this one step at a time, together. There is no one else for me, Isabella. Only you." She looked into his eyes, and for the first time since their fateful meeting, she felt like she could truly believe in the future they could have together. She had been given a second chance, a chance to rewrite her story, and she would not let fear hold her back any longer. She took a deep breath and nodded, her voice stronger now. "Together," she whispered. Aiden's smile widened, and he pulled her into an embrace. "Together," he repeated, his voice filled with warmth and certainty. They stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, watching as the last rays of sunlight faded into the night. The future was uncertain, but as long as they were together, Isabella knew that anything was possible. The days that followed were filled with quiet moments and gentle discoveries. Isabella found herself slowly adapting to her new life, her heart gradually easing into the rhythm of the palace. Aiden remained at her side, always protective, always steady. Yet, even with his presence, she could not help but feel the weight of the crown that he wore so naturally. His role as Alpha King was not something she could forget, no matter how often he reassured her that she was not just his mate, but his equal. One afternoon, as they walked through the lush gardens surrounding the palace, Aiden turned to Isabella with a serious look in his eyes. "Isabella," he said softly, his hand gently brushing against hers. "There is something I need to tell you." She looked up at him, sensing the gravity of his words. "What is it?" she asked, her voice steady, though a flutter of anxiety stirred in her chest. "It's about the future," Aiden began, his gaze thoughtful. "My people are restless. They want to see you, by my side, leading with me. There will be tests, expectations, things I can't shield you from forever." Isabella nodded, her heart skipping a beat at the thought of facing his people, the very wolves who had once dismissed her as unworthy. "I understand," she replied, though she was not entirely sure she did. She had never been one for power, nor had she ever been prepared for the role of a queen. "You've already proven more than you realize," Aiden continued, his voice warm, almost as if he were trying to ease her fears. "But I need you to be strong, Isabella. For both of us." "I don't know if I'm ready for that," she admitted, her voice tinged with uncertainty. I've never been a leader. I'm not like the others. I don't have the strength they do. Aiden stopped walking, turning to face her fully. You have a strength that no one else has, he said, his voice firm with conviction. It's not about power or shifting into the strongest wolf. It's about who you are and what you stand for. Your heart, Isabella, is stronger than you think. Her eyes met his, and in that moment, something shifted within her. His belief in her, his unwavering confidence, stirred something deep inside. For the first time, she wondered if maybe she could be what Aiden saw in her. Maybe she didn't have to be like the other women in his life. Maybe she was enough as she was. I'll try, she said softly, her voice filled with determination. Aiden smiled, his hand gently brushing against her cheek. That's all I ask, he said, his eyes sparkling with pride. And remember, you are not alone in this. We will face whatever comes together. As they continued their walk, Isabella felt a sense of calm settle over her. The path ahead was uncertain, but with Aiden by her side, she knew she could face anything. He was right. She didn't have to be like anyone else. She just had to be herself. And for the first time in her life, she felt like that was enough. As the days passed, Isabella found herself settling into her new life with Aiden. The palace, once so overwhelming and foreign, was beginning to feel like home. The gardens were her sanctuary, a place where she could think, breathe, and begin to understand the changes taking place within her. She had never imagined that she would be here, by the side of a king, let alone one who had chosen her as his mate. But every day, she felt more certain that this was where she was meant to be. Aiden, though the powerful alpha king, had a way of making her feel safe, cherished, and above all, equal. The palace, with all its splendor, had been built for someone of his stature, but as she walked through its halls with him, it felt as if it was built for both of them. One evening, as they sat together in the quiet of their private chambers, Aiden turned to her, his expression serious. Isabella, he began, his voice steady. There is a gathering of the pack tomorrow, a meeting of all the leaders in the Northern Territories. I want you to be there with me. Isabella's heart skipped a beat at the thought of facing the leaders of his pack. She had always been an outsider, never truly accepted by her own, let alone by a group of powerful wolves who saw her as nothing more than an omega. Are you sure? She asked, her voice laced with hesitation. I don't know if I'm ready for that. I'm not like the others. I don't know how to. You don't need to be like anyone else, Aiden interrupted, his voice soft yet firm. You are already more than enough. You are my mate, and they need to see that. His words settled over her like a warm blanket, but the anxiety, she felt, could not be easily shaken. I don't want to disappoint you, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. You never could, Aiden said, taking her hand in his gaze unwavering. You've already proven yourself to me in ways no one else ever could. And tomorrow, I need them to see you the way I see you, not just as my mate, but as the woman who will stand beside me as we lead. Isabella looked into his eyes, seeing the depth of his trust in her. It was a trust that she was still learning to accept, still learning to believe in herself. But in that moment, she felt something shift within her. Maybe she wasn't the woman she thought she was, the one who had been cast aside and forgotten. Maybe, just maybe, she was worthy of the life she had now. I'll do my best, she said, her voice more confident than she felt. Aiden smiled, his expression filled with pride. That's all I ask. And remember, you don't have to do this alone. We will face it together. The night passed quickly, and the next morning, Isabella stood beside Aiden as they made their way to the gathering. The leaders of the Northern Territories were already assembled, their eyes fixed on them as they entered the room. Isabella felt the weight of their gazes, each one filled with curiosity, judgment, and a silent expectation. But Aiden never let go of her hand. His strength, his unwavering belief in her, was all she needed. As they walked forward, Isabella felt a sense of calm wash over her. This was her place, and no matter what the future held, she would face it with Aiden by her side. They were a team, and together, they would show the world that nothing could break the bond they had formed. The gathering had been more overwhelming than Isabella could have ever imagined. The room was filled with powerful alphas, betas, and elders from every corner of the Northern Territories, their eyes sharp as they observed her every move. Isabella stood beside Aiden, her heart pounding in her chest as she tried to steady her breath. The weight of the room's judgment was palpable, but Aiden's hand remained firmly on hers, a silent anchor in the storm of expectations surrounding them. He had told her she would not be alone, and as the others began to speak, discussing matters of the pack's future, she understood that it was not just Aiden who was watching her. It was everyone in that room. They were waiting to see how she would respond, how she would fit into the world that had always seemed so distant from her. Isabella, Aiden's voice cut through her thoughts, drawing her attention back to him. He leaned slightly toward her, his gaze filled with quiet reassurance. Don't be afraid. You are here for a reason. She nodded, feeling the truth in his words, but doubt still lingered. How could she, a simple Omega, stand before these wolves and lead with him? She wasn't like them. She wasn't strong. She wasn't fierce. I'm not sure I'm ready for this, she whispered back. You are, Aiden insisted, his voice low but full of conviction. I see it in you. Your strength is in your heart, and that's all I need. Isabella took a deep breath, her fingers tightening around his. She looked around the room again, noticing the various faces watching her. Some were curious, others skeptical, but they were all waiting to see what she would do. She couldn't help but feel the weight of their expectations, but in that moment, something clicked. She wasn't alone. She had Aiden by her side. That was enough. As the discussions continued, Isabella found her voice. Slowly at first, but with more confidence as she spoke, she addressed the room. I may not have the strength that some of you do, she began, her voice steady. But I have something else. I have a heart that will always fight for what is right. I will stand beside Aiden, and together, we will make this pack stronger. The silence that followed her words was deafening, but it wasn't filled with judgment. Instead, it was filled with something else, a new understanding. She had spoken with her heart, and it was enough. Aiden's eyes met hers, filled with pride and something deeper. As the conversation moved forward, Isabella felt a shift within the room. It was subtle, but it was there. The pack had seen her. She had earned their respect, not through power or strength, but through her words, through her unwavering belief in what she and Aiden could accomplish together. After the meeting, as they walked back through the palace corridors, Aiden turned to her with a smile. You were amazing, he said, his voice full of admiration. I told you, you are more than enough. Isabella smiled back, a sense of warmth blooming in her chest. For the first time since meeting Aiden, she felt truly at peace. She was not just his mate. She was an equal, and she would stand beside him, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Together, they would face whatever challenges came their way, and nothing, not even the weight of the expectations from his people, could break the bond they had formed. As they walked together, hand in hand, Isabella knew that she had finally found her place in the world, beside the man she loved, in a life that was hers to shape. The days after the meeting passed in a blur of new responsibilities and subtle shifts within Isabella. Aiden, ever patient, guided her through the complexities of his world, but there was still an uncertainty within her. She had stepped into this life with him, but she still wasn't sure if she could truly fit in. She had been raised to believe that someone like her, an Omega, could never be enough. Yet, the support Aiden gave her was unshakable, and she could feel herself beginning to change. One morning, as they walked through the garden, Aiden stopped and turned to face her. Isabella, he began, his voice gentle but filled with something deeper. I know this isn't easy for you. I see the way you doubt yourself sometimes. But I need you to understand something. I've always known you were the one for me. Not because you are like everyone else, but because you are you. That is enough. Isabella felt her heart flutter at his words. He had said this before, but hearing it again, with such sincerity, made her believe in herself just a little bit more. She had never seen herself as someone special, but Aiden seemed to think otherwise. I want to be more than just your mate, she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. I want to be someone who can help, who can do more than just stand beside you. Aiden smiled, a soft, knowing smile that made her feel understood. You already do. Just by being with me, by showing up every day, you help me more than you realize. His words, though simple, carried so much weight. He didn't expect her to be someone else. He didn't want her to change. He wanted her as she was. That was enough. Then I will keep trying, she said, her voice stronger now, filled with newfound resolve. For you. For us. They walked together, their steps in sync, the quiet hum of the garden around them providing a peaceful backdrop to their conversation. Isabella had never imagined a life like this, one filled with love, understanding, and a sense of purpose. But with Aiden, she was beginning to see a future she had never thought possible. That night, as they sat together in the warmth of their chambers, Isabella realized something. She had once believed that her worth was tied to what she could do for others, how strong she was, how much she could offer. But Aiden had shown her that her worth was not measured by strength or ability. It was in her heart, her kindness, her loyalty. She was enough, just as she was. And as she looked at Aiden, his hand gently resting on hers, she felt a sense of peace she had never known before. They were partners, equals, not because of titles or power, but because of the love and trust they shared. Together, they would face whatever challenges the future held. And together, they would build a life that was theirs, one filled with understanding, acceptance, and above all, love. As the days turned into weeks, Isabella found herself growing more comfortable in her new role beside Aiden. She had stepped into the life of an Alpha King's mate with hesitation, but now she stood tall, her heart steady with the love and support Aiden continued to give her. She had been uncertain about what her place in this world would be, but with each passing day, she realized that it was not power or strength that made her worthy, it was her heart. Their bond, built on trust and understanding, had grown stronger, and the palace, once an intimidating place, now felt like home. One evening, as they sat together under the stars, Aiden took her hand, his gaze tender and thoughtful. "Isabella," he began, his voice soft but filled with a weight that made her heart skip a beat. "There's something I want to ask you." She turned to face him, sensing the seriousness in his tone. "What is it?" she asked, her voice steady but filled with curiosity. "I've never asked you about your past," Aiden continued, his eyes searching hers. "But I know it hasn't been easy. You've lived through hardships, and I need to know if you're ready to leave them behind, to move forward with me, without the past holding you back." Isabella felt a lump form in her throat as his words hit her heart. She had never truly spoken about the life she had lived before Aiden. The rejection, the loneliness, the feeling of being less than everyone else, it had all been a part of her. But with Aiden, she had begun to heal, to see herself not as broken, but as someone deserving of love. "I'm ready," she said, her voice quiet but resolute. "I know my past shaped me, but I don't want it to define me anymore. I want to build something new with you." Aiden's expression softened, his thumb gently brushing over her knuckles. "You've already done that," he said, his voice full of pride. "You've become the woman I've always known you were, and I will never ask you to forget where you've come from. But we can move forward together, Isabella. We can build a future." Isabella smiled, her heart swelling with love for him. She had always been afraid of leaving the past behind, of letting go of the pain that had shaped her. But now, with Aiden by her side, she felt ready to embrace the future. They didn't need to be defined by what had happened to them. Together, they would write their own story, one filled with love, hope, and strength. As they stood beneath the vast sky, the stars above shining down on them, Isabella realized that she was no longer the girl who had been cast aside. She was the Alpha King's mate, and nothing could take that away from her. Together, Aiden and Isabella would face whatever came their way, and nothing could break the bond they had built. The past no longer had a hold on her. She was free to be who she was meant to be, and she would walk beside Aiden, hand in hand, into the future they would create together.